I think it's about time for us to do another headset tier list. It's HTC's turn this time, so let's just get into it. But first I have to say, this is just my opinion. Your list can look completely different to mine. And my list is more based on how the headset was seen at its specific time. Because if it wasn't, a lot of these would just be in D tier. So let's just go in order with these headsets now. And so the first one is the original HTC Vive. How could I possibly even start with this one? So many people know about this headset, everyone knows the name. Just looking at the headsets that came before it and the headsets that came after it, it's just night and day. This was the go-to headset at the time. Just the hand controllers were just something that were never seen and was such a game changer for VR. And to be able to really walk around your play space was just so mind-blowing at the time. And there really just was nothing else like it. Sure, the Oculus Rift came out the same year, but the hand controllers wouldn't come out until months later. So the HTC Vive was just its own unique experience. And just the games that were designed for this headset really just stand out and really excel. Sure, you needed $800 for the headset and a good PC, and you need a good play space to put the cameras around, and the controllers that came with this one were pretty weird then, but I just can't pretend the impact this headset has had. It was everywhere when this headset first came out, and was also the first headset that I ever tried back in 2017, and I truly believe that this headset was the most important out of all of them, and I made an entire video just based on that, which if you want to, you can go check it out. So I think the answer is simple. There's no doubt in my mind, this is an easy S. Yeah, for today's standards, this really wouldn't be that good, but it's just too influential, and I think there's nothing in my mind that could change it. The next headset wouldn't come out until 2 years later, and that headset is the HTC Vive Pro. Very similar to the original, but a few key differences. So first, the resolution was bumped up a little bit, so everything would just look a little nicer overall. And this headset would actually come with its own unique headphones. These headphones are pretty good, and are much better than just having the speakers of the original one. And besides that, that's really the big differences. The only other main difference is that this one would have more cameras on it for better tracking. This headset would be the same price as the HTC Vive when it came out, but around this time the HTC Vive went down a little bit in price. So if you already had an HTC Vive, this really wasn't that big of an upgrade, but if you did want it, you could just get the headset itself and not have the base stations or controllers and save some money. But if some people just want to buy a little bit bigger boost for this, I can kind of understand it. So not as revolutionary as the other one, but this one's still pretty good. And because of that, I think this goes pretty nicely in A tier. Just a pretty good headset overall. Now this next one is pretty weird. This is the HTC Vive Focus. A lot of you may not remember this headset, and don't worry, I didn't either. And the main reason for that is because this headset was mainly used for commercial use and not really used for people who like playing games. But this headset still does some really cool stuff, like you don't need a PC to run it and you don't even need any base stations. And since this headset came out in 2019, it was about on par with the others, or so I thought. Because even though this headset was really good, the controller just wasn't. And that's right, I said controller. You only had one controller with this, and it's just this really dinky primitive controller that you can't really do much with. And here's something really weird. Even though the headset was in 6 degrees of freedom, the controller was only 3. So the movements in VR with the controller would be very limited, which does make sense because this headset was not meant for games at all and was specifically for business purposes. But in order to have a good headset, you need good games to go with it, and you can't play any games with this. And the only games you can play are just really basic and have no substance at all. So the general consumer is just not going to pick this up at all, and just because of that, this has to go in D tier. Most people use headsets for games, not for work. And that would be the direction that HTC would lean on from now on. But there's also a headset that came on the exact same day as this one, and that would be the HTC Vive Focus Plus. This is another headset that's made for work, but it's just a little better. So now instead of only having that one controller, you have 2 controllers and they're both 6 degrees of freedom. So now that the headset is good and these controllers are good, wouldn't people like to buy this? It seems like it, but the competition that it had was just too fierce. If we compare this headset to the original Quest that came out the same year, the Vive Focus Plus just doesn't have any advantages. They'd be super similar, but there's 2 main issues. The Vive Focus would be $800 while the Quest would only be $400. And even though the Focus is more expensive, the storage would be smaller, only being 32 gigabytes, while the original Quest had 64. So it's a worse product, but it's double the price. Besides work purposes, there's absolutely no reason to get this headset at all. And because of that, I just have to put it in D tier. I really wanted to put it in C, but there's just zero reason to get this. I really can't see why you want to. Yeah, I'm getting tired of all this work stuff, so let's just go back to headsets that are actually made for games, which thankfully this one does. This is the Vive Pro I. From that name alone, you can probably already tell what the gimmick is. So it's the exact same as a Vive Pro, except this has built-in eye tracking in it. So this was specifically made for people who love social games in VR. So the Vive Pro Eye would be a little more expensive than the Vive Pro, being about $200 more for the eye tracking. And if you already have an HTC or an HTC Vive Pro with the base stations, you can just switch out the headset, so I can kind of understand why people would want this. So this headset has kind of a niche purpose, but could be a game changer for others. So I think I'd have to say that this headset goes pretty nicely in B tier. Some people will really like it, some people won't. And not every headset's made for everyone, so I think this is a pretty good spot. And this won't be the last time we see another Pro again. But for now, let's go on to the next headset on the list, and that being the Vive Cosmos. So this headset would come out in late 2019 and be a competitor for the Oculus Rift S. Now with this one, you need a PC, but you don't need any base stations with it, just like the Rift S. This headset would be a little more expensive than the Rift S, but it makes sense since the resolution is higher, the FOV is better, and the hertz on it would be a little better as well. And now HTC Vive has finally got rid of those weird controllers and now have some more normal ones. So this thing was almost a good competitor to the Rift S, but there's just one big flaw. And that was when people finally got their hands on this headset, the tracking on the controllers in the headset were all just very finicky. Inside-out tracking was pretty new at the time, but not even the Rift S was as bad as this. They tried to update the headset and the controllers to make it better, but it really didn't get that much better. Just that the headset wasn't tracking properly, or the controllers just weren't where they're supposed to be, and the headset would never really recover from that. Sure, the Rift S would have these problems too, but not to the magnitude as the Cosmos did, and because of that reason is the reason why I got a Rift S instead of a Cosmos for Christmas. So I really wish this headset could have been better, but it just wasn't. So because of that, I have to put it in C tier. It was almost really good, but that one issue is just couldn't bring it up to B. So instead of fixing it, they just decided to quickly scrap up and make the Vive Cosmos Elite. This headset would come out in 2020, so it's almost the exact same as the Vive Cosmos, except now it doesn't have in and out tracking and you need to have base stations with it. They'd also have to switch out the controllers back to the old ones for some reason. It would be less expensive because of that, but if you don't have base stations, then you have to buy those as well, which would then make it even more expensive than the original Cosmos. So I just really don't understand why this one was made. The only reason I see you want to get this is if you're upgrading from an HTC Vive. This headset just really isn't that different from the Pro, and because of these reasons, I just have to put it in D tier. This headset just didn't need to exist at all, and the only reason why you get it is just a very small sample of people. And now with their next headset, we're back to the Pros, because this is the Vive Pro 2. Now here's an upgrade that you'd actually want. This headset would come out in 2021, so this is actually a pretty good PC VR headset. You still need base stations and a PC to run it, but the resolution would be much higher, the hertz would be boosted up, the tracking was better, the FOV was increased, and the headset by itself would just be $800. So if you did have a previous HTC product, then this is actually a really good upgrade. And if we look at the competition, it's just really too expensive. At this time, the Quest 2 was a thing, and it was only $300 for standalone VR, which the average consumer is just gonna go with that than a PC. So this is a really good product, it's just the competition once again was just too fierce. But I can definitely see how PC enthusiasts would really like this headset. So because of that, I think I'd have to put it in B tier. Not meant for the average consumer, but it does have a pretty good niche though. So if you already have a PC and base stations, then this one's pretty good. But if you don't, that's alright, because this next headset, you don't need any of that stuff. This one looks much different than the Pro 2, but it has a few key differences. This is the Vive Focus 3. So this one is about just as powerful as the last one, but there's one key difference, and that one is that this one is a complete standalone headset, so you don't need a PC, no base stations, just the headset itself. So this one's already up for a wider audience. And they also decided to change the controllers again to be a little more normal. So this headset is really good, it's just kind of expensive. It'll run you about $1,300 for this. And there was one last cool new feature that they added. The Focus 3 actually has hand tracking. So if you don't want to use your controllers, you can just use your hands. So for certain games, it's actually pretty good. So if you wanted a really good high-end headset, a Vive Focus 3 would be good. But if you already have a good PC and base stations, then you might as well just get the Pro 2. And it's always nice having choices with headsets. So with all that, I think I'd have to say that the Vive Focus 3 goes pretty nicely in B tier. Yeah, it's pretty expensive for the average person, but it's pretty good for a high-end headset. Now this next headset is really different from all the rest, because they really wanted to try something new this time. And they did that by making this. This is the Vive Flow. Now this headset is about as mixed bag as you can get. Now you may see that this headset is actually super thin, so it's real lightweight, so it's really comfortable. And instead of having the Fresnel lenses, they now have pancake lenses in them, which makes everything look a little nicer and makes it so the headset can be a little more flat. However, they did have to lower the resolution, so that kind of sucks. It's not bad, but it's really not ideal. Now this headset wasn't advertised for playing games. It didn't even come with any controllers, because this was more advertised for movies or watching YouTube videos, which that doesn't seem so bad, but this headset costed $500. So if you really want to experience something in a new way, then sure, you can go get it, but you can't play any games on it. And I also said this didn't have any controller, so how did you control it? Instead of using a controller, you just used your phone. And you could use any modern phone. Well, it didn't actually start like that. For the longest time, you could only use an Android phone to use as a controller. It would take months until you were able to use an Apple device. And a lot of people have Apple phones, so you're just leaving a big chunk from getting this headset, because no one's gonna buy a phone just for this. Even though they did fix the problem, the damage was kinda already done. So I was having a real hard time ranking this one, but I really think I have to say C tier. I almost put it in D, but I gotta admit, this headset was pretty ambitious. And no one really did anything like this at the time. And this headset actually fixed a lot of the mistakes that plagued it. If only the Cosmos was able to learn from that. But it would have been so cool if the Vive Flow was actually able to play games. But that's okay, because there's something super similar to it that actually does play games. And it's this one right here. This is the Vive XR Elite. And when I first saw this headset, I thought it was too good to be true, and that was actually kinda right. So let's just start off with the good stuff this thing did. So it is really nice and small, which is cool. It also has hand tracking. You don't need a PC or base stations, and it's standalone. And it comes with controllers, and you can actually play games on it. Alright, well that's all nice and good, but what's wrong with it? Even though the resolution would be bumped up from the Flow, it's actually not that good. It's actually about the same as a Quest 2. A little better, but really not much of a difference. And even though it's really small, it's actually kinda dense. Even a Quest 3 is lighter than this thing. And the main kicker is that this thing costed $1,100. So a Vive Focus 3 was only $200 more than this thing, and it was way more powerful. Not to mention later that year the Quest 3 would come out too, and it would only be $500. So once again, it's good, but it's just the competition is just too fierce. So I think I have to put this one in C tier, because by itself it's not bad, it's just there's just better stuff out there. And with that, I thought this list was completed, but in the middle of actually making this video, they just announced a new headset. And when this video goes up, it should have just come out by now. And this all new headset looks like this. This is the Vive Focus Vision. And this one's actually got me a little excited. But before I get to talk about this headset, if you've gotten this far and if you've really enjoyed this video, I would suggest subscribing to the channel. My goal for the end of the year is to get 10,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it if you did, and if you don't want to, you watching this video is good enough for me. So on to talk about the Focus Vision. So this headset is actually looking kind of promising, because this one looks like it has AR capabilities, and it looks pretty good too. Sure, the XR Elite had AR as well, but it wasn't really as fleshed out yet, and you couldn't really do much with it. So it's quite similar to the Quest 3 in that regard, and the resolution of this headset is the same as the Focus 3. This headset actually also comes in with built-in eye tracking as well, so pretty good for people who like social games, and it also has hand tracking as well. But here's something really cool. This thing has automatic IPD adjustment, so the lenses will go exactly where they need to be for you to get the clearest image. But speaking about the lenses, they actually go back to the Fresnel lenses and not the pancake lenses that were used in the last one. And with even all that, this is still a standalone headset, so you don't need a computer and you don't need any base stations. However, this headset is built also with having a PC in mind if you want to, which that's pretty nice, but this is still a high-end headset, coming in at $1,000 for this. So in a way, this just seems like a really souped up Quest Pro. So this is a pretty expensive headset, but for what you're getting, I'd say this is worth it. But price is still a pretty big factor for headsets. So this headset isn't out and anything could change. This is a very early guess, but I'd say for now it should be in B tier. At least that's just my rough estimate for now. Maybe it'll go to A, maybe it'll go to C when time goes on, who knows. And with that, that completes my list. I'm not gonna lie, I actually kind of struggled putting this list together. Some seem pretty good, but not quite, and I wasn't really too sure. So if you think I get any of these wrong, you can say in the comments which ones I got wrong. Maybe the Focus Vision will become an S tier headset. But thank you guys for watching, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys later.